Good afternoon, everyone. If I could have a couple people to help pass out these brochures for me. Thank you. Just get one per person. Okay, if you can hear my voice, clap once. If you can hear my voice, clap twice. If you can hear my voice, clap 3 times. Okay, we are going to begin our meeting, so those of you who are visiting, I'm going to ask you to go out into the narthex to visit so we can talk about the stuff with St. Joe Hill boiler. So as most of you are aware, and Andrea, I'm glad to see you here because this is going to be important for you, so thank you for being here. As most of you are aware, when we went to fire up the boiler this last fall to get it ready for winter, it was not functioning. There were too many leaks in the pipes, and the pipes are too old to continue utilizing that boiler. So we had to move to a new system. And I said at the time that we would get the quotes and look at what it would cost to get that done. I knew it was going to be high, but I didn't know how high it was going to be. So I'm sorry, if you guys could please, so that everybody can hear. Sorry about that. So David did the preliminary work in about the first month and a half or so, and he said, well, what we really need to do, I threw out because it was just going to be too expensive. And I said, well, what is that? He said, well, what really would be best is to run 3-phase electric from underground up to St. Joe Hill, up on the hill, to get a transformer put up there and all that. But REMC, the price of that is going to be about $90,000. And so he said, I threw that out right away. I said, why is that the best? He said, well, it's the best for the long-term use of all those buildings up there. You can run much more efficient units if you have 3-phase electric. You have to ask David why that is, but he gave me all the reasons, and I don't remember half of them. But he said it's just much more efficient, not only for the church and the boiler that we're going to be putting in, or the HVAC system we're going to be putting in, but he said it'd be best for the other buildings as well, because we could eventually transition all those buildings to a different phase of electrical system as needed, and that will help efficiency and all of that. And so I said, well, don't throw it out yet. I said, let's go ahead and get the quotes on doing that. So David's been busy working, he got quotes from at least 3, I think maybe 4 different groups on the best way to do this and how to do it. And so if you look on the inside right-hand cover, the inside on the right hand, it gives the cost of the project. The boiler equipment with the kind that we're going to be using is $198,700. The 3-phase electrical and the electrical work that goes through that is $66,000 and $27,500, and then we put in contingencies of $30,000, which is roughly 10%, bringing a grand total of $322,200. So that's what we're shooting for, because when we talked about the other, it was going to work, and we'd have it for however long the life of a boiler similar to the one we have in there would be, but it would not be the best system in the long term. So my thought is, I don't want to just work at keeping those buildings for the next 10, 20 years. My thought is we want to keep those buildings because of their historical value for as long as we possibly can. I've said all along that we'll keep St. Joe Hill Church open for weddings and funerals as long as we are financially able to, and as long as I'm your pastor. I can't tell what the next guy coming in is going to do. But as long as I'm your pastor, we're going to try to keep that open for weddings and funerals as long as we can afford to. This is the first big test of that. We're going to find out if we can afford a $300,000 project to keep that church functioning. So that's kind of where we are. And with a project like this, a repair project, the diocese does not allow us to borrow the money, so we have to have the cash in hand before we can start. We're wanting to start relatively soon for the purpose of we have a June wedding that the couple is renting our space. They're not parishioners, but they want to rent the space because their church is St. John Starlight's not big enough for their crowd. And so they came down. They were at Mass last night here and stayed around for the meeting. So we're hoping to have it for their wedding, which is, I think, either June 8th or June 15th, somewhere in that range. So in order to do that, we really need to get started relatively quickly. So we're going to see if we can raise $330,000 or $320,000 in about 1 month's time. So this is not going to be a pledge like we did for the new church here. This is going to be what do you have available right now that you can send us. So that's kind of where we are. I've heard varying things from varying people about the likelihood of raising $320,000. Some said it's going to be an easy ask and we're going to have the money before we know it. Others said, I don't know, Father, if that's going to happen or not. I think it all depends on where you come from. So we're going to try it. And so that's kind of what we do. On this sheet, there is a place where you can fill out a commitment form to that and send it with your check. Or people have asked, can we contribute stock? Some people have appreciated stock. That makes a wonderful gift because you then don't have to pay the capital gains on it. If you donate the stock to the church, you need to talk to Katie Eichhorn if you want to do that to let her help you walk through that so that you avoid the taxes. Talk to your tax professional as well. So that's kind of the gist of it. And that's really my spiel today, just asking you to look into your pockets and see if you can help us and at what level you can help us. If you plan on making a contribution, you can tear off that one page, put it in an envelope, mark it boiler, so that we can credit all of that to that. If we get more than the $320,000, we're going to put anything we collect beyond that into an endowment fund for all of our buildings, maintenance. An endowment fund is a fund where you can draw the interest, but you can't ever touch the principal, which is really, I think, a great way. I came from Sacred Heart Parish in Jeffersonville. When I got there, their endowment was 1.5, 1.6, something like that. I was there for 10 and a half years. During that time, we drew out our quarterly 5% every quarter from our endowment, and that endowment still continued to grow because the stock market was making more than that during that time. So when I left, the endowment was around 1.9, 2 million when I left. So the object of an endowment is your principal grows, but you never touch it. So the next pastor can't come in and say, well, I'm going to use that to build a jacuzzi in my rectory. So, I mean, you can't use that. It has to be kept there in endowment. So ultimately, if a parish can grow an endowment, that's a great way to help furnish your operations if you have a large enough endowment. So that's my spiel, and I'm going to take any questions, comments, or snide remarks. I'll take any of them. Andrea? If we collect money and it's not able to be used, we will let the people know, that's we're not going to be able to use it for that, and then they'll decide what they want to do with that. But yes, we would refund anybody who wanted to be refunded if we collect money and then it's decided that we don't have enough to do it. Somebody asked at a previous Mass, what if you don't collect enough to do this, but you collect enough to do the smaller project? We'd probably go ahead and do the smaller project. It's not what's best in the long term, but it would get us, the building functional for another however long that would last. And that is my goal, is that we keep the building operational as long as we can.
So it's all because of the wedding? Like if you couldn't get it in time for the wedding, could you still?
We can, yes. So she asked the question, is it all, is the timing is because of the wedding? Could we wait longer and do it later and not worry about the wedding? Yes, and the couple was they've called, the interesting part about this, they called St. Augustine, which is an older traditional, they like the older traditional style church, and so they called St. Augustine. St. Augustine's in the exact same situation we are right now, in that their boiler is down. It broke midway through winter this year. And so they're having all their masses at Sacred Heart this year because they share the pastor there. And then Holy Family, they're replacing their boiler this summer. So we're up against everybody doing boiler work at the same time. Did I see a hand up over here? Oh, yeah, Tim.
Two questions. Is boiler heat the most efficient and best for the future? And second, how many households are fulfilling a stewardship of treasure currently?
So the two questions are, is the boiler the most efficient? This new system isn't a boiler per se. He called it a variable refrigeration unit. That's on the very back, variable refrigeration flow system. So it'll be one system. Boiler just does heat. I could be wrong on this. As I understand it, a boiler just does heat. This one will do both heat and cool. So similar to probably what we have here in the new church. And how many people typically fill out a stewardship of? We have about 500 parishioners, families that contribute regularly to our parish. We had 700 that contributed to the new church. A little over 700 contributed to the new church. So that's about our numbers for that. People always say, well, just divide 320 divided by your number of contributing families and tell everybody what they should contribute. And I always say the example, if you needed to raise $10,000 and you had 100 people, you tell them we need $100 from each of you, and that'll be enough. Well, somebody may be sitting out there who can't do $100, and somebody may be sitting out there who could do 1,000, so the best thing to do is to pray, the same prayer I asked you to pray when we were building this church. God, what do you want to accomplish through me for this church? You pray that prayer to God. If everybody did that, we'd come up with the money. I have no doubt about that. My fear is that people are going to kind of wait and see so that they can contribute as little as possible to still get the job done. That's my fear. So I think the idea is, God, what do you want me to do through me for this? Just to give you a kind of where we are. Somebody else asked, do we have any money in savings that we can use for this? We have right now, I think, about $400,000 or $500,000 in our savings. I'm looking to Andrea to see if that sounds about right. I think that's what we have. This church still has every month a $66,000 mortgage on it. We are paying that every month from both the final campaign pledges that are being fulfilled and whatever we're short each month, we take out of our savings. So we figure we're going to get out of this with about $100,000 in savings on paying off this church. And we had planned on and budgeted for that to have a certain amount come out of savings, so we knew that was coming. This church will be paid off in December of this year, which is great. I mean, for it to be paid off that quickly is a great thing. But then we've had this additional thing that's popped up. I saw a hand up over here. Dave?
Years ago, you know who Jerry Finn is?
Yeah.
I don't know if he still does it or not, but he used to work with a program that donated, of course, it was like boat money. And I know one time, I believe they helped out Holy Family School, I won't swear to that, something like that, to improve it.
Yeah.
Is there something we can do like that?
Well, the boat money, unfortunately, Clark County voted down the boat. And so that money cannot go to Clark County. It can only go to Harrison and Floyd, are the only two counties that money can be used for. So at least that's the story I've heard. And,
I don't know, I didn't know if there was any other options, any other
yeah. Well, as I said, I've always said we'll keep the buildings open as long as we can, and this is going to be the first major test of that. Is are we capable of maintaining two church buildings? I had a person ask, do we need two church buildings? Well, the bottom line is no, we don't need them, but it's such a historic building and all that, I can't imagine this campus without it. And I think in the long term, it's going to allow us to do some ministries and some things that that we haven't even imagined yet. I don't know how many people are aware. We have the possibility. It's very, very initial stages. I don't have any idea if it'll come to fruition or not, but the possibilities of a group of nuns who are headquartered in Boston of sending 2 or 3 nuns over here to work in this area as a way of growing their young order. The order is less than 10 or 12 years old, already has 11 members, I think, and 1 postulant, so they're a growing religious order, and they were here to visit in December to look at it. They have some connections in our parish, and they looked at the rectory and the St. Joe Hill Chapel as a possible place for them to do some ministry. So that possibility exists if we have those 2 buildings available to them. Any other questions?
I don't have a question, but I just want to say, start buying your lottery ticket.
Well, we could say if God really wants to save the building, somebody will win the lottery. I've said that for many buildings for many times, and God says, do it yourself. God's given us all the resources we need. They're out here, and it's just a question of figuring out what God wants to do through you for this building. Okay, thank you for your time. If you have any further questions, contact me. If you have any questions about the system itself, contact David Austin. Thank you all.